Okay guys, so let's talk about structural integrity. First of all, we are somewhat of a cylinder type shape through our midsection. So if we take our arms and our legs, and there's our trunk, we obviously are in a very superior position when we're standing upright. But the problem with, say, deadlifts, or sometimes when people are squatting and the bar forces the person forward, is that when they go into a flexed type of a spine, generally speaking, now we're not talking about elite lifters, okay, because just touching on that very briefly, elite lifters can and often do, when they are lifting a superior type weight, they will go into a superior position with their spine where they slightly are flexing the spine. For example, we'll take Barry over here, and we've got our natural curve. That's the back of the skull, that's the back of the spine. Now we take our natural lumbar curve of the spine, and this is the position that generally I'll try and teach people how to deadlift in. So when they're over in this position here, we're trying to maintain to some degree that type of a posture. Now, for the superior lifter, yes, as you can see, and this is why it's not a big no-no, okay, is that you can see that each vertebral body is actually in a much stronger loading position. The problem with this is when somebody gets in this position and then they don't maintain that position and they keep going further and further, that's when generally they'll run into problems. And it takes a lot of hours and practice, perfect technique, to build up that core strength to be able to maintain. And so when we go into a slight extended position, or let's say not extended, but let's say that natural curve in your spine, what happens is we're able to usually keep that position a little better, and until the lifter is able to get to the point where they're able to maintain structural integrity all the way through the lift, we do not mess around with going into flex spines. In saying that, I do have a client who does it with a flex spine, but he is rigid right from the bottom right through to the top of the movement. Now, going back to the can here, let's just quickly talk about this cylinder shape like a can. When we put force down this way, say if we're loading a bar in a squat or something like that, then our structure of our body is actually really, it can handle that load. But when we go over into this bent position, say for the deadlift, hence what we're talking about today, what happens is we start to load the spine. Now what we need is structural integrity, like I keep mentioning, and that is all of our abdominal muscles, or what we largely talk about, which is core. Now your core consists of so much muscle. Now we're talking about abdominals here. We'll say we've got our six pack. Let's say this is the front of the person. We've got our internal and external obliques. They run like this. And then we've got our lats. Let's say the arm comes down here and attaches onto the front of the shoulder there. And so when we screw those shoulders back down and tight, so we're doing that pulling down action, that actually creates a lot of tension and security for this thoracic part of the spine, somewhere here. So there's our lats taking care of that. Now, our transverse abdominis is sort of that cylinder shaped muscle. So it's very important that we get all of our abdominal muscles, our back muscles, everything to work together. I suppose sort of like let's say like a symphony. Every muscle plays a part. So the more muscles we can get involved in the lift, the better that structural integrity is going to be. So the problem that we run into when we go into a flex spine is that as you can see here, we're curving over. This one here, it's a little bit more of a neutral position. All right, and so this is what we're trying to maintain. The more we go into this flexed over position, this is L5, L4, L3, L2, L1. Same here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What happens is, as we flex over, I've done this little triangle sort of shape to show you that this is what's happening is, if we take your disc and now we're looking down on the center of your disc from above, so we take the vertebra body and we take that off, and now we're looking straight down at the disc. You have this little thing in the center here called a nucleus pulposus. We don't want that to move back in this direction, and when we go into too much flexion, like what we do in our daily lives, this thing starts to move its way from the center, further back, until we then start to create a bulge. That bulge will touch nerves. Once we have that problem happening, we're in trouble. We start obviously going and trying to fix that problem. But usually what the problem is that we do this too much through our day. Have been sitting all day, we come into the gym, we go to lift a weight and we don't keep that structural integrity, and then we go into a slightly more flexed position, too far in the range, and all of a sudden we're running into problems with our back. So we have to maintain good postural structure and strength, and that is why we definitely want to use, as you will hear in me doing any sort of filming with my clients, you'll often hear me say big breath and brace. So I'm looking for that tightness down into the belly. So we're not breathing up into the chest, we're breathing down here into the belly. So I drew up on here now as if someone was wearing a belt. So if we were to take this, we'll put a belt buckle on him, yep. So what happens is, if now I take a big breath and I brace up against that belt that's on me, that creates even probably a more superior tightness, because I'm using all of my abdominals, I'm using that big breath and I brace up against the belt, creating more tension. So yeah, because often people in the past have said to me, why are you wearing the belt if you've got a bad back? And it's very much the opposite of that. I'm trying to, I won't use my belt until I start getting up into the real heavier lifts. And I use that as an aid to just help get a little bit more tightness. So there's nothing wrong with wearing the belt, but you need to develop that core strength obviously first. The belt is just a great tool to use when we've already developed that strength in our structure. All right, so hopefully that was helpful, guys, and I'll go over some of the stuff in the video about positioning of everything, and hopefully you got something out of that.